So who was the biggest loser of college football playoff semifinal weekend when all was said and done? Was it James Franklin, Penn State's head coach, who seemingly is 0 for lifetime in games his Nittany Lions are not favored to win over the last 10 years? Or maybe it's Steve Sarkisian at Texas, who seemingly suffers the same affliction? Or is it possibly his quarterback, Quinn Ewers? To say that Quinn had a rough end to semifinal number 2 against Ohio State on Friday would be a bit of an understatement. Well, I could probably make a case for any of the three, but not today. Not when Brian Kelly, head coach of the LSU Tigers, exists. Because I got to tell you, nobody lost as big as BK did this weekend. Welcome back to Hall of Fame College Football. I'm your host, Jason Watkins, and if you love college football, you know you're in the right place. So before you forget, smash that red subscriber button, like our videos, and don't forget to ring the bell so you don't miss one moment of Hall of Fame College Football. Well, it was quite the weekend, and it's actually been some hell of a playoff, really, this first year of the 12-team edition of the College Football Playoff. But there was no shortage of drama over the weekend in the semifinal round at the Orange Bowl, featuring Notre Dame and Penn State, nor in Dallas at the Cotton Bowl in Jerry World, where Ohio State won in dramatic fashion against the Texas Longhorns and Steve Sarkisian. Be pretty easy to kind of, as I said, talk about who lost the most coming out of those games. But truth be told, the more I've thought about it over the weekend, I don't think that there's even a question. And it's Brian Kelly of LSU, the former head coach and the most decorated head coach in Notre Dame history in terms of wins, anyway. Though he was never able to get over that hump and win the big one, losing in a BCS championship game big to Alabama, and in a pair of other playoff appearances as well while head coach at Notre Dame. I think most people, and including myself, felt like when he took over as head coach at LSU in 2021, that the things that were possibly holding him back from winning big were things that weren't of his control, because basically we heard that all the time. Not shopping in the same aisle, blah, blah, blah. That excuse doesn't exist in LSU because there's talent everywhere. So much so that coaches not necessarily considered among the elite when it comes to X's and O's were able to just really put it together, and both won national championships. We're talking, of course, about Les Miles and old Coach O at Orgeron. So as I said, most people did expect Brian Kelly would probably follow in their footsteps and win one, maybe more than one, in his first few years on the Bayou. Not so. As of right now, hasn't made it to a playoff yet. Even this expanded edition of the college football playoff that started this season, he's 4-9 against ranked opponents and seems to get more publicity for making a fool of himself than anything else he's done since arriving in Baton Rouge. Can't win a season opener. And even against less talented teams at neutral sites like Florida State or this year's 6-6 USC Trojans, who beat him in pretty, well, not good fashion down in Las Vegas, when they had multiple opportunities to win that game. Certainly looked like they were the more talented team on the field that night, but mistakes and lack of discipline did them in. I think it was the same was true for much of the year after that. But not only that, Kelly isn't fielding a serviceable defense to go with Heisman caliber quarterbacks like the 2023 Heisman Trophy winner Jaden Daniels and projected first rounder, if he were coming out in the 2025 draft, Garrett Nussmeier, who apparently will be back at LSU to give it one more ride this season. The excuses about not getting the recruits on that side of the football, the defensive side of the football that is, vary. But mostly it's more excuse than anything else. You know, like when he said that players wanted to be bought and LSU wasn't in the business of buying players after losing out on Dominic Williams last summer. Back in South Bend, of course, Kelly lamented that it was academic restrictions that kept him from winning on the biggest stage. You know, those claims that he used to make about not shopping on the same aisle as the rest of the country always seemed to be the narrative for why they didn't win games against teams like Alabama or oftentimes Clemson. Marcus Freeman, now in his third season, he has built enough depth from the aisle that they shop in, of course, to sustain massive amounts of injuries and still have probably the most complete football team in college football. I didn't say the most talented, I said the most complete. They're certainly without many rivals when it comes to trench work, offensive line, defensive line, and really defense altogether. In order for them to still go through this season with the amount of injuries they had, their number one left tackle was out before the first game ever happened, and they started a freshman at that position all the way up until this past week when he got hurt also, and they had to go with a portal addition that had some experience, but it certainly wasn't great experience. They still found a way to overcome not only that, but a bout with the flu bug that went throughout the team and saw them kind of start off pretty sluggish and weak a little bit against a pretty formidable Penn State defensive line. You see, this is the point in time that the old Brian Kelly, Notre Dame, would have folded up shop and made excuses for losing a game that they were, although maybe evenly matched with when it came to, you know, size in the trenches, the ability to run the ball, a good offensive game plan by Andy Kotelnicki, so on and so forth. He would have found a reason, made an excuse for why they were playing poorly. That he would have made sure everybody knew about the sickness going throughout the team. He would have barked at the sideline reporter or whatever. And at the end of it, would have talked about it was another really good season in South Bend, another 10 wins for a blue blood that expects more than that. This is not how Marcus Freeman is built, and he did not react that way when asked between the first and second quarter what his team could do to regain its footing and stay in the football game. He simply outlined what he felt like needed to be done.
Ready to level up your mobile game? Check this out. With unlimited talk, text, and 5G data, customers are scoring 3 whole months of unlimited everything. Imagine chatting away without counting your minutes, sending texts like there's no tomorrow, and streaming your favorite shows at lightning speed all for just $30 a month. But wait, it gets better. For new customers, that's only $15 a month. Seriously, it's a game changer. No more worrying about overage charges or buffering. You can connect, share, and enjoy life to the fullest without any interruptions. So, why wait? Jump on this incredible offer and experience the freedom of unlimited service. Click the link and grab this deal before it's gone. Trust me, you don't want to miss out.
Log on to trymintmobile.com/HOF. That's trymintmobile.com/HOF.
They did the week before against Georgia, who everybody believed was a big mismatch for the Irish, other than this guy, and was able to make some plays in special teams, get some turnovers from the Bulldogs, and really dominate that football game for most of the final three quarters. Freeman, of course, is 14-5 since taking over as head coach for Kelly back in 2021 at Notre Dame, tying Kirby Smart for the most wins against ranked opponents over the last 3 years, and well ahead of that 4-9 mark of his predecessor in South Bend, Kelly. With Kelly, it's always excuses. Those fake, or at the very least, disingenuous takes about why he hasn't lived up to expectations at LSU, why his teams continue to lack discipline, like what we saw from Kyron Lacey and some of those guys in the USC game at the start of the year, when they were getting multiple unsportsmanlike penalties that allowed USC to continue drives and ultimately win that game. Why he can't land the best players in a place that seemingly grows them on trees in the bayou behind the stadium, or even when he does, he can't push those players to win in those big games, similarly to what we were just talking about with Franklin and Sarkisian. They just seem to come up short, and there always seems to be some kind of excuse. Marcus Freeman's teams have gotten off to rocky starts in 2 of their 3 games so far in the college football playoff. And when his team finds a way, he makes those wins about us, not me. Which is a far cry also from Brian Kelly, who once had the nerve to scold reporters who were late to one of his press conferences early last season, insinuated that them showing up on time for the press conference would help him coach better or the team play better. Odd exchange that day. An odd exchange. I'm going to end it with this. I can guarantee you one thing. Back in December of 2021, when it was announced that Brian Kelly would be taking over as LSU's new head coach, I remember thinking there's no way that you would keep him from winning a national championship for much longer. No way. Because in my mind, he was just a better coach than the 2 guys that preceded him. And both of them won national championships because of all the resources that LSU has at its disposal. Amazing recruiting ground. All kinds of talent in the area. Unlimited resources. And look, not for nothing, admission standards at the school that pale in comparison to those at Notre Dame. And if you'd have told me that Notre Dame would be playing for a national championship before Kelly and LSU ever did, I'd have told you were crazy.
Get the fuck out of here.
Get the fuck out of here.
Get the fuck out of here.
I'd have told you were crazy. And I venture to say, so would almost anybody not inside that locker room. Nevertheless, here we are 3 years later, and it's Marcus Freeman and Notre Dame that are one step away from hoisting their first national title trophy since 1988. And they had to beat Georgia and Penn State to get here. Not to mention an Indiana team that I don't believe should have been in the playoff, but they did what they were supposed to do and beat the crap out. LSU, meanwhile, finished 7th in the SEC this season. They had losses to Alabama, Texas A&M, Florida, and an equally excuse-driven Lincoln Riley and the USC Trojans all the way back in week 1. Kelly's now 0-3 in season openers, all 3 of which were at neutral sites against teams he should have beaten. But again, those excuses continue to come from BK. Whether it's we don't buy players or
Get the fuck out of here.
Get the fuck out of here.
Get the fuck out of here.
whatever, man. It's constant. Always something with Brian Kelly. Notre Dame went into the game with Penn State this weekend with probably more than half of the team down sick with the flu. Not to mention all the injuries along the offensive line. Their number one defensive tackle out of the game with an injury. Their best running back hobbled with an injury, although he still played. And a quarterback that has been basically playing injured for most of the year. And it looked as if he even got a concussion at one point early in the game as well. Somehow, they were able to stay in the game long enough that they were able to believe again. And it makes sense why they do, because Marcus Freeman just doesn't make excuses. In fact, the sideline reporter gave him an opportunity to say, yeah, maybe we're just outmanned here today because of, injuries and blah, blah. He could have made all those excuses right there in between the first and second quarter. And he was like, that's not how we're built. We're not built that way. We won't quit. We're going to figure it out. He had a plan. He went and did it. And lo and behold, at the end of the game, they're winning. They win the game. There's been a lot of doubters, and they still did it anyway. And it's because this guy is a different dude. All the reasons you've been told for all these years that Notre Dame can't win a national championship anymore may go out the door on Monday, January 20th, when the Irish take on Freeman's alma mater, Ohio State, which, by the way, is definitely worth the price of admission as well. This is a football team that probably has one of the best offenses I've ever seen. And they may be the only team in the country that has a better defense than the one Marcus Freeman will bring with him to Atlanta for the game. They're not afraid of them. They're an overwhelming underdog. But make no mistake, they're still here with an opportunity before Brian Kelly and LSU. Let that sink in a minute. What we do know is that the Irish are not likely to completely fall apart if things don't go their way early in this football game. Even Ohio State has shown a propensity to, if things don't go their way, come apart a little bit at times. Go back to the Michigan game for the last 4 years. But no matter how things turn out, we now know the truth about Brian Kelly and the guy that replaced him in Notre Dame. One is going to continue to give you every excuse in the world why he and his program have not won the big one yet. The other one, win or lose Monday night, is going to embrace the challenge of the moment. That's what he's always done. There's not going to be any excuses if he doesn't, because that's the old coach from Notre Dame, not the new one. Not many of you believed that they would even get this far. Whether they win or lose, how significant is it what Marcus Freeman has done at Notre Dame? Let me know what you think in the comments. We'll see y'all on the next one.